Hey, good morning, Indiana. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, the unapologetically progressive Sunday morning talk show for the Hoosier State. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, broadcasting from Bloomington today. A lot to get to. Another difficult week in the news. We're going to talk about it here with a couple good friends. I've got Cliff Marsiglio and Lori Ecker joining me here on the other side. First, I do need to, engage in a little shameless self-promotion here. Feels kind of icky on a day like today, but we could really use your help with a subscription over at Progressive Indiana Network. That is progressiveindiana.net is the website. Please help us out with a paid subscription if you can. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us do more of this and bring you content from a bunch of great Indiana creators. We could also use a follow at PIN Indiana on Blue Sky and TikTok. It's Progressive Indiana Network spelled out on all the other ones. You can find me at who'sleft.us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. It's at Who's Left on all the others. So let's go ahead and welcome in our guest today. First, joining me, returning to the show after an engagement last weekend, there's Lori Ecker.
Howdy. So good to see you all.
So nice we had to do it twice.
Yes.
And welcoming back after far too long, there's Cliff Marsiglio joining us again.
Good
Cliff,
morning, everyone.
welcome.
And it's good to actually get to talk with you, Lori, even though we see each other all the time.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and get right into this thing. There is a lot to talk about. Let me go ahead and fire up our graphics here. So let's start out wide and then zoom this thing in to Indiana as we go on over the course of the show. So let's start by putting this week in perspective. And we, I don't know if the word is celebrated, but we marked the 1 year anniversary of Donald Trump's second inauguration. He celebrated the anniversary with a meandering press conference. This from the New York Times, quote, "He held court, airing old grievances, attacked perceived enemies, threatening allies for roughly an hour and 45 minutes. The meandering, sometimes rambling remarks jumped from topic to topic, including a story about his prowess as a Little League player, threats to Greenland, complaints about the Nobel Committee, gloating over firing federal prosecutors, and boasts about limiting border crossings. I think God is very proud of the job I've done," Trump said as he neared the end of his remarks. Now, for the part of Americans, people across the country walked out of school and work on Tuesday afternoon as part of a nationwide walkout to protest the Trump administration. Dubbed the Free America walkout, the protest took place on the anniversary of Trump's second inauguration. That was not the first major protest action in the country. We'll talk about another one later this week. But listen, guys, how you feeling a year into Trump 2, Lori?
Well, it's exhausting. I mean, we're all exhausted, and but I will say, no matter how down I get at times, I am more committed than ever to fighting. There's no choice. We're at the point where we have to focus on protecting human life from the regime. It's a bizarre time. And yesterday, oddly enough, I thought, in a way, when I have moments where I'm not completely emotional and overwhelmed by it, I think what a time it is to be in the resistance, because that's what we are. It's the most important work I've ever done. It's mattered more, or just as much as the times I've sat by the bedside of my loved ones who were dying. There's nothing more important that I've ever done in my life than what I'm doing right now. And the only thing that really is hard for me is I wish I could do more. But I know that all of us collectively have enormous power to stop it, to push back, and to create hope for ourselves. So that's where I'm at. I couldn't be more proud to be with all of you. As terrifying as this time is, you all give me hope, and I don't know what I'd do without all of you. So that's where I'm at.
Cliff, how are you feeling this week?
Not very good. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. It's we're living in an interesting time. I was just talking with friends that yesterday was the first day that I felt my privilege is slipping. I've been able to act generally with impunity because I look like this. I know what I look like. I know how I come off to other people. I put myself in harm's way between officers to defend people. The worst that's ever happened was me being taken into the station and told, "Go home. Don't make us put this on your record." Yesterday gave me fear. I I found myself in the middle of a Klan parade as I was ripping off hoods, and a team of whatever you call them, a pack of Klansmen start running at me, only to run into the arms of officers, and I felt safe. You know what? At this point, I am not feeling safe in this country, and it's my privilege is slipping, which means that I'm feeling the same that all my black and brown brothers and sisters have been feeling their entire lives.
Folks like us, I mean, maybe not the three of us, we know what's going on, but other folks that look like us need to wake up. And if you haven't gotten that wake up call in the last few weeks, I'm not sure you're going to get it. So I want to stay high level here and move on. So this week, Trump began with a wild, unhinged, middle of the night posting spree over Greenland before he headed off to Davos for the World Economic Forum. This is from Huffington Post. So and Trump went on a lengthy posting spree on his Truth Social website in the early hours of Tuesday morning that included insults aimed at U.S. allies and screenshots of what appeared to be private messages from French President Emmanuel Macron and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Now, while his posts touch on everything from the immigration and customs enforcement raids in Minnesota to Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve governor he's trying to fire, most were about Greenland, the semi-autonomous region of Denmark that he is threatening to seize for the United States. Trump's messages posted between like 12:30 and 2 a.m. included a couple of memes showing Greenland under his control. There was a map which showed the stars and stripes, not only on the USA, but on Canada and Greenland. There was another one showing the president planting the U.S. flag on what looked like Greenlandic territory. Now, on the same day, on Tuesday, several hours after Trump's crazy spree, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney was, in a way, the star of the show at Davos. This is from Mother Jones, quote, imploring an audience chock full of European officials at the annual World Economic Forum to recognize that nostalgia is not a strategy. Carney rallied middle powers, countries with economies similar to Canada's, to bind together in the face of unilateral military and economic coercion by bigger powers, unspoken but clear among them, Trump's America. In doing so, Carney painted a stark view of a new world in which old rules have been torn up and countries should stop pretending otherwise. We are in the midst of a rupture, he said, not a transition. Now, of course, the next day, Trump's presence loomed over the entire gathering. In his remarks, he took aim at many familiar targets and some new ones, in which he alternately praised and threatened European allies and repeated his demands for ownership of Greenland. Now, for his efforts, he did pledge not to use force to seize the semi-autonomous region, giving some measure of relief, but that slight comfort was likely undercut by the often mocking tone of a speech that underlined European leaders' worries about the health of NATO and their relations with the United States. Trump lashing out again, this time at European allies, renewable energy, Somali immigrants, the Federal Reserve, and Carney, responding to the Prime Minister's remarks from the previous day, quote, Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. Carney did remember that, giving a 30-minute speech Thursday back home in Canada at a Liberal cabinet meeting in Quebec City, kicking off 2 days of meetings with his front benchers. The cabinet is holed up behind the stone walls of the Citadel, a storied military base, and the Governor General's secondary residence that looms over the Quebec capital. Now, ironically, this building was fortified in the 19th century in an effort to secure the city against a potential American attack. I don't think the symbolism should be lost on anybody. Trump's attack on allies continued at Davos, making statements that were offensive to some of our NATO allies. In an interview with Fox News on Thursday, he said that a lot of allies who participated in military operations in Afghanistan after 9/11, we never really needed them. He says they sent some troops to Afghanistan, but they stayed back a little off the front lines. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Afghan war veteran himself, Prince Harry, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk blasted these comments. Again, while Americans did take the heaviest hit in terms of casualties in Afghanistan, other countries with suffered similar losses per capita, including Britain, including Denmark, who controls Greenland. So did you guys see any of these remarks at Davos over the week, Lori?
I have to admit, there's a lot that I just can't watch because I certainly can't listen to him. I don't even like to see him animated. So I don't listen to Trump anymore. And I read the entire speech that Mark Carney put forth, and I can understand why he got a standing ovation. I have been hoping and praying that Canada and Europe and other countries would finally realize that we cannot be trusted, we cannot be relied upon. They're not alive because of us. I mean, they've been greatly dependent upon us, I think so much more so than they should have been, obviously, because that's why they've been vulnerable. But they have no choice but to move ahead without us. And I'm very grateful that he made that speech. And I hope they continue to gird their loins and keep pushing for independence and solidarity amongst themselves. It's a completely different world order that is going to have to be formed at this point. So I was very heartened by that. I just hope they stick to it because they have to. They absolutely have to. In regards to his vile insults about how other countries did not help us in wars, it's just, it's devastating to hear those things coming out of somebody's mouth here in America. So that right there, step towards creating us or making us a pariah nation. We're already bad off enough. But one thing that I do want to insert here, which I think is really, really important, I added this to the document that I sent to you, Scott, about the possible economic devastation that this insane retaliatory tariff craziness, this mob boss threats that he puts forth towards other countries economically, it could destroy us, our economy. And I think I encourage everybody, it's a Simon Rosenberg post. Normally I follow Paul Krugman, who really enlightens me about the economic end of what could happen as a result of what is going on. But I encourage people to follow Paul Krugman, to pay attention to how this could affect the economy. And the post that Simon, it was an interview that he did about what this could do to us, our economy, would be particularly devastating if European countries divest from us. And they will, without the rule of law, without real numbers from the Fed. If that's taken over, if that's destroyed, we're looking at catastrophe. So that's also a component of it I don't think we discuss enough. So I just kind of want to get people to aware of that and thinking about that and following information about what that blowback could be. So that's my big point there, and I don't want to run about that point. There's
Well, yeah, Lori, I kind of think they want to crash the economy. A good crash is good for the people who sit at the very top because they can scoop up everybody else's assets on the cheap. And not to mention if we crash the dollar as the world's reserve currency, maybe Trump's meme coin can slide in as the new world reserve currency. Cliff, after a couple world wars and I don't know 1,000 years of internal conflict, it seems like the Europeans kind of figured out that you need to work together and build these multilateral institutions. And they've served us well for the last 4 generations. I think we've forgotten those lessons.
We're seeing this over in England when they decided to leave the EU. Their economy started crashing. Their people started realizing we should be and they kind of moved back to say, yeah, we're kind of EU light. We are trying to divest ourselves from everything. We have gotten rid of the industries that could give us independence, and rightfully so. Let other people who in developing nations do the things that we don't want to do so we could focus on the higher level things. I don't see a way through this without killing the economy in the way that Trump is going. However, I think this has been one of those things where I have never been in doubt that has been his goal the entire time. It has not been something that has been a secret. I don't know how his followers have not seen this. I don't know how anybody who is in anywhere near the middle class doesn't get that they are behind the 8 ball and they are going to be suffering far worse under Trump than anyone else. I feel like on the left, we see accelerationists. We see accelerationists who want this to happen because it will drive us to action. On the right, we see accelerationists who want this to happen because it may kill off the left. And I understand the left. I understand why the left wants to do it because we have been complacent. The right wants to do it because, frankly, they have lost their humanity. The left is hoping we bring our humanity back to us.
At this point, Cliff, I don't think there's any. There's no going back. I mean, listen. I saw, and I will not name names, but I saw an elected Indiana Democrat at some point this week posted on social media, like, let's get those 2016 vibes back. Like, honey, no, we can't. There is no going back there. The only way out of this is through this. And that is a theme I will keep coming back to again and again and again in this election year, if we even have elections. We're talking about Davos and the World Economic Forum and the breakdown of the European Union and NATO. And, those are not the only international institutions under threat. The UN is also under threat. And, Trump's putting this Board of Peace thing together. Now, Brazil's president, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, is calling this out, saying that this Board of Peace is an attempt to, quote, create a new UN. This is from Al Jazeera. Lula has accused his U.S. counterpart of wanting to create a new UN days after the U.S. president launched his new Board of Peace initiative in Switzerland. So instead of fixing the UN, what's happening? Trump is proposing to create a new one where only he is the owner. Lula said in a speech on Friday. Trump launched the board with a signing ceremony in Davos on Thursday during the Economic Forum, another international body that has increasingly presented itself as an alternative to the UN system. Plenty of criticisms to go around there as well. But the U.S. originally said that this Board of Peace would oversee the rebuilding of Gaza after more than 2 years of Israel's genocidal war on the besieged enclave. But the board's 11-page charter doesn't actually mention Gaza, suggesting its interest may have expanded in scope. Now, members of the board include Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is accused of war crimes by the International Criminal Court and whose forces have killed more than 300 staff members from the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, in Gaza. So this Board of Peace thing is dividing countries in Europe and the Middle East. Like we said, Netanyahu said he agreed to join the board, which is a departure from an earlier stance when his office criticized the makeup of another committee tasked with overseeing Gaza. Norway and Sweden said they won't accept the invitations after France also said no, while a bloc of Muslim-majority nations, Egypt, Indonesia, Jordan, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates said in a joint statement that their leaders would join. And here I interject and will tell you that most of those countries are run by autocrats. Now, Trump defended his choice of invitees, including some considered to be autocratic. And he says, I have some controversial people, but these are the people that get the job done. These are the people that have tremendous influence. So, again, like we said, this Board of Peace thing was floated originally as to rebuild Gaza, right? Well, what's going on there? Israeli fire struck journalists and children in one of Gaza's deadliest days since the ceasefire on Wednesday. This is from NBC. The IDF killed at least 11 Palestinians in Gaza, including two 13-year-old boys, 3 journalists, and a woman on one of the war-battered enclave's deadliest days since this so-called ceasefire between Hamas and Israel took effect in October. More than 470 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire since the ceasefire took effect on October 10th, according to Gaza's health ministry. Again, hell of a ceasefire you got there. Now, additionally, we mentioned the UN UNRWA agency. Israel also bulldozed their headquarters in East Jerusalem this week. Israel accuses the United Nations Relief and Works Agency of collaborating with Hamas, a charge the agency denies, and last year banned it from operating on its territory. The demolition marks Israel's latest step against UNRWA, which provides aid to millions of Palestinian refugees. So, Lori, like I said, hell of a ceasefire they got there. But this Board of Peace thing doesn't even look like they're paying much attention to Gaza and the plight of the Palestinian people.
I think it's a little toy for Trump because he can't get the Nobel Peace Prize. And so he's created this board of autocrats, dictators, fascists, whatever you want to call them. My understanding of it, when I first read it, correct me if I'm wrong here, was if you join, you pay this huge sum of money to be a member. You get a vote. However, your vote doesn't count if he wants to overrule it. So the thing that I keep getting stuck on with this is, what is this really about, other than him creating a little peace board, a board of peace for himself? I have to wonder, what is going on? Why would any of these people, who I'm sure are much more intelligent than him, anybody is, why would they join this? Why would they pay a lot of money for a vote for whatever they vote on? I don't know. Why would they pay for it and not really have a vote, not really have a say in anything? What are they getting? What is going on behind this? What kind of dealing on the backside is happening? I don't know. I just keep going back to, I've always thought of Trump as Biff from Back to the Future. And in this capacity, it's like deadly dangerous on a world scale, a global scale. So I would really love some thoughts from you and Cliff about what do you think? I've pondered it. I don't think it's anything other than some malign organization of people. And I do want to say this too. I find it highly interesting that you have all these Muslim nations, and these are the people we're trying to kick out of our country. So I don't, does anybody even see that bizarre contradiction going on there? What he says, they get things done. Oh, they get things done all right, just like he gets things done. But I just find it a really scary group of people, and I want to know what's going on behind it. So,
Well, listen, black, white, brown, all subordinate to green. I think in this situation, or gold. Take your pick. Cliff. Listen, I know you'll appreciate this reference. You're a comic book guy, I think. Board of Peace is more like Legion of Doom. It seems like.
Yeah, do I need to bring out my cosplay photos of me as Joker and Amy as Poison Ivy? We can take a trip over to Cincinnati to the original Legion of Doom. You have to be a comic nerd to know what I'm talking about. Sorry about
The
that.
original Legion of Doom is in Cincinnati. It's in a Skyline Chili, isn't it?
It's actually, it was, if you watch the cartoons, it's designed after their transit station. Google it sometime and you'll say, why are all the cosplayers not showing up here in costume? It is amazing. But yes, this is exactly what we are talking about. This is their Legion of Doom. You know what? You ask why these Islamic nations are running through there. If you look at their leaders, their leaders are Islamic in name only. Their people are Islamic. I have many, many Muslim friends who are dedicated to peace. They're autocratic, fascist leaders. You see what they're doing to their people. You see the fact that they live their lives in ways that do not represent what they're forcing on their people. You see that they live their lives in ways that denigrates Islam in every single way. And you wonder why we have such a poor view of Islam in this nation. It comes from seeing leaders who say one thing and do another. It's the same reason Christianity is looked bad on by so many people. As a Christian, I come from the faith of the brethren, and I hear people talking Christianity, and I think, no, 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 this is not what was taught in Sunday school. This is not what we want. These autocratic nations are doing the same thing using Islam. Religion's always going to be the way these people destroy their own people. These leaders, these autocrats, these fascists, they don't care if they're adopting the policies of their oppressors, so long as they are an oppressor.
Yeah, the religion of money and power is these folks' religion, and we're gonna see that as we come back in the back half of the show and talk about Indiana and some of the Christian nationalist bills that are moving through our state house. But I think we've established at this point, a year into the Trump era, this performance at Davos, this Board of Peace thing, we are establishing a new group of Axis powers, it seems like, and we're on the wrong side this time. And the parallels to the 1930s are not lost on us, and we have our own Gestapo in the streets. And we're going to talk about Minnesota, where yesterday our own homegrown Gestapo goons murdered another American citizen. First, we learned this week about a memo from ICE going back to last May in which ICE told officers and agents they can forcibly enter homes of people subject to deportation without warrants signed by judges. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal said in a statement that the memo was allegedly not widely distributed, despite being labeled all hands. A copy of this memo shared with Congress is addressed to all ICE personnel, but this disclosure claims that the memo was rolled out in a secretive manner in which some agents were verbally briefed while others were allowed to view it but not keep a copy. Blumenthal said it was reportedly clear that anyone who openly spoke about it against this new directive would be fired. Now, excuse me. Sorry, that shouldn't be doing that. Very sorry. Very sorry. So, also this week we saw the DOJ serve up subpoenas to Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, and other Minnesota officials amidst this immigration crackdown. Stick a pin in that. Now, one of the things they're doing, the feds, in subpoenaing Walz and Frey and others, is they're saying that law enforcement are not allowed to do their jobs. Well, the law enforcement in Minnesota is being targeted by ICE. Off-duty police officers in the Twin Cities have been targeted, according to Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley, who said so on Tuesday. He said he wishes he could say this was an isolated incident, but many of the chiefs who were standing behind him at this press conference have had similar incidents with their off-duty officers. He says this isn't just important because it happened to off-duty officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what's right and wrong, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. So, you know, if your spidey senses aren't going off where the secret police are profiling the regular police, they're also kidnapping children. The most horrific image of the week, we thought, was this picture of poor little 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos in his driveway being detained by ICE as he returned home from school with his father. Now, he's a student at the Columbia Heights Public School District, where they say federal agents have detained 4 of their students in 4 separate incidents over the last 2 weeks. Like I said, including the 5-year-old who the superintendent of the district said was used as bait to draw family members out of their homes. Agents took the father and the child away in a vehicle and sent them to a detention center in Texas. Now, this, understandably, and the ongoing occupation brought out tens of thousands of Minnesotans into the streets of Minneapolis on Friday. Hundreds of businesses participated in an economic blackout to protest the ICE surge in the state. About 100 clergy members were arrested by police during a protest outside the airport. Besides faith leaders, the No Work, No School, No Shopping Day of protest was kicked off by community leaders and labor unions and included actions across the state, plus business closures in solidarity. And, you know, I think maybe Friday night, after that big display of solidarity in Minneapolis, I've seen estimates up to 50,000 people in the streets. We were feeling hopeful that there was a mass pushback growing to this, and I think yesterday's incident just took the air out of everybody. So federal agents yesterday morning shot and killed 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Pretty after a scuffle. Now, Pretty had a legal permit to carry, is a U.S. citizen, and lives in Minneapolis. We've seen the video from multiple angles that Pretty had a gun on his person, but was not reaching for it, was not holding it, and was disarmed already by the time these goons shot him multiple times. And the gaslighting, again, just like with Renee Good a couple weeks ago, began immediately. Customs and Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, who has taken to literally prancing around in what can only be described as Nazi garb recently, shamelessly blamed the victim, saying he approached Border Patrol with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and violently resisted arrest, and that the ICE agents, the CBP agents, feared for their life. There were 6 of them on top of him. They had him pinned down and disarmed. I don't know how they feared for their lives. The video plainly contradicts what they are saying. Protesters descended on the area, where they were disparaged as rioters and met with chemical irritants. Minnesota officials demanded an end to the operations in the area. Governor Tim Walz activated the Minnesota National Guard to help the local police and support the Hennepin County Sheriff in protecting the Whipple Federal Building, which is where ICE has set up shop in Minnesota. And Trump was perhaps even more disgusting than Noam or Bovino here. In a statement on Truth Social, he blamed Walz and other Minnesota officials, saying that this is a distraction from massive amounts of fraud taking place in the state. I don't know where to begin, Lori. I probably saw them murder that guy 24 times yesterday from various angles, and it is
Well,
family.
we're truly in 1984. It's completely Orwellian. There are videos from all angles that you can watch, photos from all angles that you can watch. I was watching Heather Cox Richardson last night, and I encourage you, anybody who hasn't watched it, I adore her. And it was a very moving, especially at the very end. She started to cry herself, and she's always calm and collected. You know how she is. She's she's the Rock of Gibraltar. It's just incredible. But what is happening now is very Orwellian, and they're saying, we're lying. You know we're lying, and we know that we're lying, but you have to believe us anyway, and we're going to keep lying. And that's exactly the final demand, in Orwell's novel is, you do not believe what you hear and see, you believe what you are told. And that's what they're pushing now at this point. As far as I'm concerned, from what I saw, and I could only watch so much of it, and then that was it was really hideous. And he was executed. He had done nothing. He did not have a gun in his hand. He may have had a gun on him, which was legal. And that, irregardless of all of that, he was in no way a threat to them. And they'd already subdued him. Obviously, they dogpiled him. And then they shot him once. He was probably already dead. And they continued to shoot him 9 more times. You have right now in our country set loose upon citizens of this country a goon squad. It's state-sponsored terrorism, murder, execution. That's what it was yesterday. And I'm not going to back off of that statement. And people can lie to themselves all they want. But the one thing that became abundantly clear to me yesterday, and please, everybody be aware, they've started terrorizing people in Portland, Maine now. They've started there. They've landed there. They're going house to house, terrorizing the shit out of everybody there. They're terrified. They're hiding. They can't go get groceries. They can't take their kids to school. They can't go to work. It's the same scenario. And it's going to happen everywhere. But what we have to really think about now, and I'm begging everyone out there who cares, find a way to protect human life. If you want to deliver groceries to people in need, if you want to take children to school or escort people to school, or you just want to get out on the streets and pay attention to what is going on, then do that. All that was happening in that street yesterday were people filming and blowing whistles. That's it. And then they sprayed him with chemical spray in his eyes. They blinded other people with carcinogenic, gases. I mean, God only knows what they're using and what they're given to use, because these people are evil barbarians. And I'm not going to say in charge of Homeland Security. I'm not going to call them by any titles, because they're not fulfilling those positions. Those positions don't exist anymore. We have people that are in control of our government and departments in our government that are simply goons and barbarians and murderers. And that's the only way to describe it. And I'm going to continue to describe it that way. And I'm going to implore all of you, please think of ways that you can protect your fellow community members, because it's coming for everybody. And I'm going to say this too, and I know I'm rambling on here, but this is all I've been thinking about for 2 weeks, is how can we protect one another at this point? Jess Piper from Missouri said yesterday, there is no shade of white that's going to protect you from this. So you may think you're safe, but nobody is safe from fascism. Nobody. They're coming for all of us. Hitler killed his own people that funded his regime, and then he killed them. The same thing will happen to us. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're 100%. Like Cliff, I get pushback from people who are nominally on our side in this thing, who say, "Oh, well, don't use the F word, don't say fascism," because I don't know. There's not death camps yet. And that's the only thing that makes fascism.
But they have killed people in captivity, and yes, they are killing them. Even Heather Cox Richardson said that. I just need to interject that. I should have said that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, fascism's a spectrum, and we're getting pretty damn close to full spectrum fascism here. But just going out, everything. Went to a musical the other night. Watched a football game Monday night. It feels surreal. It's like living in Berlin in 1936. Like, it's still fascist, but you're not there yet.
Under Hitler, some of the greatest works of orchestra were written. Some of the ones that I listen to and I think, this is beautiful. I never want to listen to it again. All the while Paris was being occupied, the arts were still allowed to proliferate. These are what people don't realize. We are allowed to have our little bits of morsels of art, because it makes it seem palatable. Because this is why Trump is fighting for the Kennedy Center. This is why the Trump Kennedy Center exists. And what is great is nobody wants to perform there anymore. No one. The Kennedy Center is going to be the Ted Nugent Kid Rock Center from now on. We're not going to see ballets there. So yes, I don't believe fascism is a spectrum. Fascism is fascism, and we have been living under fascism. And I am waiting for this fascism to be over, because Germany saw it. I am Italian. I am not allowed to post the photos of what we did to our leaders in Italy. Facebook does not like those anymore. Every time I do, it goes away. I want to see Nuremberg trials once again, and I want to see Trump in front of them. I want to see every last person who's involved with ICE. At this point, you've made your decision. If you are a part of ICE, you are treasonous. You are a traitor. You have violated every Geneva Convention that we have put out there. Fascism is not a spectrum. It is fascism. It is time to call it out and not and not be quiet about it. When the Democrats yell at me for talking about fascism, fuck you. Be a Republican if that's what you want. Sit down, don't vote. Let us take over. If you are not ready to be a leader, fuck off. I'm done with it.
And abolish ICE is the moderate position anymore. Abolish DHS in its entirety and prosecute these people. Like, prison is too good for a lot of these folks. Cliff mentioned what the Italians did to Mussolini and his comrades in the aftermath of World War II. Took them to the Esso station. I would say, for fear of myself being prosecuted, I volunteer Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem for a similar fate. Prison is too good for both of them. And yet, we've got Democrats out there, 7 of them this week in the House, voting to keep funding ICE. I mean, what the hell are you people doing? Lori, I don't know. What good are these feckless Democrats?
Well, I don't feel like we have people in place who are prepared or ever wanted to be able or to have to step up to the plate in a time like this. I do believe that they're incapable, most of them. And there's a part of me, and I know that, and I get frustrated too, believe me, when I say step up and lead for God's sake, because they have to, or step down. I understand they're worried about death threats and all the other things. Those are legitimate worries about the death threats to themselves and their families. I think the Republicans probably even get more of it because when they push back, they're considered traitors to their own group of people, to their own party. I guess that's the term you could still use for that.
The cornered rat strikes those closest to it first, right?
Exactly, right, exactly. That's a perfect phrase. I've never heard that, and I love it. But we just aren't ready for these times. And I was having a really interesting discussion with a friend last week, and she said, I'm not ready. I don't think I'm prepared. I don't think I'm even capable of or have the fortitude to face this. The people who lived through World War II and did without and fought fascism elsewhere in the world, they're all gone. And we have benefited, those of us left have benefited from that new world order of countries of democracy that came together to forge an alliance to hold up democracy and the rule of law and through NATO and their alliance. But so we've never known what it was like to wonder how bleak and horrible can the future be. And I think that's part of what factors into all the, we've got corruption and dysfunction in the Democratic Party for sure. And especially here in Indiana, I'm just going to say that we got a lot of dysfunction here in Indiana, but in general, I think it's a system that's been established in defense of the people that are in it and don't advocate for this insanity that's going on. I think they're just completely ill-equipped. They're in a dysfunctional system. They weren't prepared for this in any way, shape, or form, and they don't know what to do. I think that's a huge component of it. I'm not giving them a pass. Don't think that's what I'm doing, but I just don't think they're up to the task for so many different reasons. And we need new leadership all across the board and young folks that know what's at stake for them in the future. So that's kind of my thought on that. But Cliff, I'd be interested to
Well, Cliff, I mean, we at least need our elected officials to be as brave as random Minnesota residents who go out in the street with whistles to protect their neighbors. Right. You know, what the hell are you doing? Right. You want that seat, lead, damn it.
Right.
I'm seeing the primaries come up here in Indiana. I'm seeing people all over the state, and I see far too many of us quiet, far too many people afraid to go to protest to make their names known. These are the people that should frankly be sitting out of the primaries. They should be sitting at home making donations to people like me. They should
Yeah.
they should be, if they're not ready to lead, if they're there here to be the polite side of democracy during a fascism, there's other areas they could do to support us. They're not going to support us in the state house. They're not going to support us at the federal level. They're not going to support us when they're police chiefs. They're not supporting us when they are doing nothing. I need my Democrats to step the hell up now.
Yeah, we can't have these Vichy Democrats. We need real resistance. So
I mean, every time I go out on the street, I have somebody send a photo and like, is this you? I'm like, yeah. Are you hanging out with this group of people? Yes, they're the people that are speaking up today. Where were you?
So, this whole thing in Minnesota, the reason they're like Trump gave, right, was, oh, this is all because of fraud. And you see, I saw NBC had this one today, or earlier this week. They say over half of Trump's 88 individual pardons are for white-collar offenses, with money laundering, bank fraud, and wire fraud among the most frequent crimes the president has wiped clean. Additionally, about half of the pardon recipients are either business executives or politicians, including in the latest round of pardons issued Thursday and Friday, I believe that was of last week, were a former healthcare CEO, the former governor of Puerto Rico, and a pair of siblings who were convicted of fraud charges, one of whom Trump previously freed for a different crime. And this is aside from the group of roughly 1,500 convicted January 6 rioters he pardoned on his first day back in office, and additional symbolic pardons for those involved in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Now, speaking of the 2020 election and attempts to steal it, former special counsel Jack Smith testified before a House Judiciary Committee meeting this week. It was Smith's first public hearing since he left the department last year, and the nearly 5-hour session delved into far-flung details, from former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson's blockbuster testimony before the January 6th committee to the gag order slapped on Trump during the investigation over his efforts to intimidate witnesses. And Smith's testimony got some attention, but what got more attention, I think, in Congress this week was a different committee, the House Oversight Committee, holding Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress in the Jeffrey Epstein probe. The former president and former Secretary of State failed to appear for depositions last week, prompting oversight Republicans to pursue contempt proceedings. The chair of that committee, Kentucky Rep. James Comer, also says they intend to depose Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner in crime, on February 9th. I will remind people that nearly all of the Epstein files are still unreleased a month after the congressional deadline. That was December 19th. It was mandated by Congress's Epstein Files Transparency Act. Trump's Justice Department has not complied with this, prompting questions about when and whether authorities will ever release investigative documents about the late sex offender. Now, Lori, I run into people online a lot that they say all of the stuff, the Venezuela, the Greenland, the ICE, is all a distraction from the Epstein files. I contend that the Epstein files are a distraction from the fascism. What do you think?
Oh my God. I think maybe it could be a little bit of both, because I've heard that too about all of this stuff that he's doing is to distract from the Epstein's files. But I do believe that there is something in there that is so horrendous And I don't know, I had a friend lead me to somebody, there was some man named Sasha something, and I don't know how any of that, if it's even relevant. I haven't delved into it just because I haven't had time to look at it. But I feel like so much of what goes on is a way to constantly make us pivot. Everything's a red herring, it seems like. I believe that the Epstein's files is huge. I shudder to think what is being hidden in there, because they've redacted what little bit they've released. It's almost all redacted. It's absurd. It's they didn't release anything. I don't even think, in my opinion, they didn't even release that. And my guess is, if they ever intend to release anything, they're going to make sure every bit of it is either destroyed or redacted. I don't, it's, I wish I had more knowledge of the backside and inside of how that sort of thing happens, and the machinations that go behind covering it up, or putting it out there, revealing it. But of course, I'm not on the inside of the government. God help me, I'm so glad. But I don't know. I think I think it's a little bit of both. It's hard to determine for me, as I ponder it. And for me, I think a lot of it, I will say this, not the Epstein files, but so much of the other stuff, it's like the peace board in Venezuela. It always seems to be some kind of a way to extract money from people. It's always, you know, there's always something, there's always power and money behind every
the pardons, right? I mean,
yeah,
he was selling them. We have Rudy Giuliani on tape, I believe,
right.
Or at least it has been reported that Giuliani was trying to arrange the sale of pardons during, I believe that was Trump's first administration. You know, no coincidence that he's pardoning billionaires and folks that have ability to pay for said pardons. Cliff, you know, seeing Jack Smith up there on the stand tested and had, laid the case out pretty well, went into as much detail as he could. Why didn't they start those proceedings immediately after the January 6th insurrection? It's like Merrick Garland and the DOJ were talking about feckless Democrats that afraid to push the envelope, afraid to hold people accountable for doing the treason, because that might upset some folks.
Garland has always been a Republican. He has been a Republican who we have found to be center enough to not be offensive. He knew that he was going to be going up against people that he liked. I don't even know how to explain this, because we picked him for SCOTUS because we thought that he could get through the roadblock during the Obama years and have somebody who's a compromise that we absolutely do not want, but would make it through. And he would have made a good left-leaning Republican on SCOTUS. He would have upheld the rule of law. He would not have been our friend, but we would not be in the same place where we have with our recent picks. We should have found some. We should have made Jack Smith our attorney general and let him pick someone to go after them the way he did.
And they should have started immediately. They dawdled, they wasted time, and it's like they wanted Trump to come back. And I've seen authors make that case. Sarah Kendzior, read her stuff; she's amazing. She points the finger at Merrick Garland as complicit, if not a willing participant himself. It's just so much, everything, everywhere all at once. It seems with this week. I mean, there's so much stuff we don't even really have a chance to get into. I've got a bunch of like miscellaneous notes that I'm we're not even barely going to touch today. We saw Doge this week. Remember Doge? You know, it came out that they shared people's social security data to an unauthorized server. God knows if Elon Musk probably personally has all of our information now. South Korea's former leader was jailed for 23 years after he attempted to declare martial law and run a coup in his country. Way to go, South Korea. This is how it's done. We also saw this week, Second Lady Usha Vance announced she is pregnant with her and J.D. Vance's fourth child. Congratulations, I guess. And
she dressed
finally,
the sofa?
I have seen some funny memes in this regard. There were a couple redistricting and gerrymandering related stories also this week. A judge in New York ruling that state's congressional map needs to be redrawn. And in Virginia, Democrats there are aiming for an April 21st ballot measure, which will allow them to engage in some redistricting. A couple of Democratic states maybe redrawing their maps in response to this big Trump push, which began last year in Texas. You know, Indiana had our own brush with it. We rejected that gambit by Republicans, which was, you know, heartening to see. And we will flip to Indiana now because along those lines, Donald Trump this week threatened and I'm going to use the word moderate Republicans in Indiana, and moderates doing a lot of work there. Moderates working so hard it might be an immigrant. But yeah, he said in another Truth Social post that they're going after State Senate President Pro Tem Roderick Bray. Trump targeting Bray on Saturday last week for last month's rejected congressional redistricting plan that would have favored the GOP. Trump on Truth Social said Bray betrayed the Republican Party, the President of the United States, and everyone else who wants to make America great again. We're after you, Bray, like no one has ever come after you before. And this renewed criticism comes after Friday's vote in Virginia, where the Democratic-controlled legislature passed a constitutional amendment to redraw its own maps before the November midterms. Additionally, Bray is not the only target of Trump's ire, as he also posted a screed against Senator Travis Holdman on Thursday night, calling Holdman a rhino, Republican in name only, who, for whatever reason, voted against redistricting in Indiana, in a district I won by 39 points, which puts the United States Congress in jeopardy. And he said he would give his complete and total endorsement to Blake Feichter, a Bluffton City Council member who the Post called a true America First patriot, who I understand hasn't even actually filed to run in that race yet. So, like, Lori, I don't know. Do you feel for these guys at all? Do you have any sympathy for Bray or any sympathy for Holdman? I mean, or this is what you get when you get into bed with these people.
Well, I think there is part of that. You know, I don't know if sympathy is the right word, but I sent them all these people that voted against us, all these Republicans, I sent them all actual thank you cards. They weren't thank you cards because I didn't want to say thank you, but I wanted to express that I basically said I commend you. And I do, because I do believe a lot of them, I think some of them were going to be vulnerable if it happened. So that's why they voted against it. But I think there were quite a few of them that legitimately were hearing from their constituents. I mean, like the one guy that he wants to go after, the Bluffton dude that would take over. My guess is you've probably got a lot of people, they may have voted for Trump by 39 points or whatever he said. That's probably a lie too, but they still don't want urban interests to dilute their interests in their districts. That's why so many people on both sides, so many constituents were like, no. I mean, my district would have been all the way down to the border of Kentucky. It was absurd. They don't want us down there, and we don't want them up here. It's nobody wanted it. It's not governing. It's just stealing the 2026 election, and we all know that's what it is. So people can see it for what it is, and they hate it. And I don't discount how much bravery it took to be a target. They were swatted. They've received death threats. I mean, he's basically mob boss style saying, oh, we're going to come after you like nobody's ever come after you. It's just absolutely mind-boggling to me. But so I'm going to give him credit where credit is due. It took a lot of guts to do it. And there were some in the House that voted against it as well. I sent them some cards, even though the House overwhelmingly voted for it. But definitely the Senate, the heat was on them, and they were the targets because they overwhelmingly voted against it. So, yeah, I can't say I think that they're. But they're brave. But they're brave. I'm going to give them that, and they did what many of them did what their constituents wanted. So there is that. So.
Yay. I guess I caution folks, Cliff, to avoid falling in love with these Republicans who have a modest independent streak too much. I mean, they're still wrong 95% of the time. Congratulations, broken clock right twice a day. I mean, I think we've got Adam Kinzinger coming into Indiana for a speech sometime in the next few weeks.
Wow.
Hamilton County Democrats are bringing him in, and it's like, again, listen, I guess the guy can fill butts in seats, maybe raise some money. He's wrong on everything. He was right once on January 6th, and we've got Democrats fawning over him. Like, quit it. I got no use for these people. I think they deserve the hate they get from Trump. Like, congratulations, you didn't kiss the ass enough. You were always being used. I don't know. Cliff, am I wrong?
No, I speak to Republicans every day. I've had many coffees with people on the opposite side of the table. I disagree with almost everything they do. I also believe that deep inside they have a humanity that is calling to come out. And my coffees with them, my conversations are trying to bring the humanity back to them because, and it's hard. Sometimes there, once over the last week, I walked out of a conversation because somebody was dehumanizing a friend of mine that we both knew. And I said, you know what? This conversation's over. We have to thank the Republicans when they do things right, because we have to remind them that they are human and that we are fighting for people. We are fighting for our citizens. We are fighting for people who are not our citizens. We are fighting for people who love the same way we do. They have family, they have friends, and we have to treat them like people. We also have to remind ourselves that every single vote that they do is a system of oppression that is hurting those same people. So I'm not here. I am not going to be at the Kissinger or whatever his name is town hall. It's in Muncie, I believe. I'm not going to take the time to go there. I'm not going to kiss his ass to say, thank you for being right once. I'm not going to be there to say, hey, I would still be a Republican with every single policy if Trump were just more polite about it. Don't don't take one moment to remind or to forget that these people would have your women in the kitchen, the gays in the closet, and the trans in conversion camps. These people would still be outlawing DEI. They would be telling blacks that they were happier in the fields. They would be happy to say all these things as long as you said it politely.
Hmm. Yeah, I could not have said that better myself. Now,
You probably
so
could have, because I'm stumbling over everything.
okay, we talked about the threats that a lot of the Republican senators in particular received when they were considering the redistricting bill here in Indiana, and they were targeted by MAGA folks, the swatting, the death threats, like you said. And then we saw this week a judge in the Lafayette area actually get shot. And my first thought was, oh God, this is political violence. I mean, it is political violence, but it's not the same kind of political violence, I guess, if that's something to hang your hat on. So this is from USA Today. Lafayette police responded to a report of a shooting in a residential area in about 60 miles northwest of Indianapolis on last Sunday, January 18th, at about 2:17 p.m. local time. Police found Tippecanoe Superior Court Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife, Kimberly Meyer, had been shot. The judge sustained an injury to his arm, and the wife suffered an injury to her hip. Now, the suspect was at large for a couple days, but it came out this week. The suspect was apprehended, and this is actually tied to a gang member's jury trial. So this is from RTV6. Raylan Ferguson, Thomas Moss, Blake Smith, Amanda Millsap, and Zanata Greer face felony charges, including conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and intimidation in connected with the shooting. So, like we said, Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife were shot on January 18th. Ferguson was the perpetrator. He fired multiple rounds through their front door while pretending to look for a lost dog. A probable cause affidavit states this shooting occurred 2 days before Thomas Moss, an alleged member of the Phantom Motorcycle Club, was scheduled to begin a jury trial in Meyer's courtroom. Lori, motorcycle gangs seem quaint, in relative to fascist goon squads.
I will say the first thing I thought when I read this was I hadn't heard of it, so I was really thrilled that you supplied me with that link, the information. What I found really interesting is, unless I misread this, didn't they actually travel to Pennsylvania and target somebody there for intimidation as well? I want to say it was not. I want to say the actual state of Pennsylvania was what I read into it. I think I read that. So what I get from this is we now live in a society where it's like this lawless Wild West, and people who are aggrieved and people who are violent, people who have a criminal nature or background or both, they feel like they can do anything because that is what is happening on the highest level in our country with the quote unquote government, which is a regime now which we have in place. And that was my biggest takeaway from this was no one is safe. Once again, it's like this fascist, malignant cancer that is growing in every part of our society, where you have a quote unquote president, lack of a better term, who's in place, who will attack anybody, lie about it, kill anybody, let criminals go free, mostly white collar criminals, but nonetheless, he pardoned every single January 6th person. So now it emboldens everybody. I think that's a symptom of, I mean, not that it wouldn't happen and things like that have happened in the past, but I found it a disturbing symptom of what's happening at every level now.
Yeah. So yeah, and I will, Lori. So yeah, I guess there was an attempted incident that was very similar to this in Pennsylvania, where a witness that was supposed to testify in this trial, what had somebody came and knocked on her door and sort of attempted the same thing that they did here with the judge out in Pennsylvania, and it's thankfully nobody was hurt out there. Cliff, do you have any thoughts on this?
So biker gangs and these sorts of people are indicative of a fascist regime. When you see fascist regimes throughout the world, the first people who are propped up are these gangs like this. It's it's not real. It's designed that way. They are emboldened by the people at the top. At this point, we are having home invasions as being synonymous with Hoosier values. We are seeing biker gang. Several years ago, I made a post online because a well-known gang, the daughter of their leader, was shot. I made a post, and through jail, their dedicated chaplain of the order contacted me to make sure that I never mentioned her name again. Was not connected to any of them, did not know any of them. It was a little scary. These people are connected throughout the country. There are gangs such as Hells Angels who are connected through Latin America, even though they are a deeply racist organization. Here in Indianapolis, we had the outlaw bikers 3 blocks from where I am now. Their old clubhouse is now a children's park, and it was the last thing that Mayor Joe Hogsett did as U.S. Attorney, Southern District, Indiana, did that I respected. He took it upon himself to go against all the shit that comes with targeting a biker gang, and he took them down. And that was through multiple other U.S. attorneys who wouldn't touch it. I have nothing but respect for a judge who will fight for this, and I hope they find a way to put every last one of these motherfuckers in jail.
Damn right. Damn right. So, hey, speaking of motherfuckers, let's talk about our state legislature, Cliff. So, now we're not going to get a chance to go too in depth on any of these bills. I will let you know that I will be back tonight at 7 o'clock with Mad Voters Director of Advocacy Katie Rector to look at the past week's action in the State House, what bills are moving along, what's made it out of committee, what's getting a full hearing. Again, that's going to be at 7 o'clock right here on these same fine channels. But let's look at these a little bit right here while we're together. So there's several themes, I guess, that I want that we can group these bills into. And then the first one deals with wages and affordability. Now, the Republican legislators' priority bills, House Bill 1001, 1002, are supposed to deal with affordability. House Bill 1002 especially is meant to deal with electric utility rates. Lawmakers on Tuesday revised their electricity bill with more changes likely. This would reshape utility providers' low-income customer assistance programs, block service shutoffs to those customers over dangerously hot months, put all ratepayers on budget billing plans, and refashion rate making into 3-year plans featuring performance-based incentives. And House Bill 1001 has to do with housing affordability. I'll talk about those a little more with Katie tonight. Those are ones that they've not really taken a stance on one way or the other because these bills are going to be amended. They're going to get movement. But one thing that did make it out of committee this week was, and this is from Indiana Capital Chronicle, a key finance panel on Tuesday inserted a 1-year state income tax break on overtime and tips for Hoosier workers. The amendment would cost the state about $250 million in tax revenue, and that loss would be covered by the growing state surplus, said Senator Travis Holdman. Now, this amendment would couple Indiana's tax code to federal tax code with regard to no tax on tips or overtime or on low interest for American-made vehicles. This was a big Trump thing that he campaigned on and got stuffed into his big stupid bill last summer. Now, it is ironic, I think, that this no tax on tips thing is not really going to make a difference for your average Hoosier worker, but their employers are doing great. Indy Star had this one talking about last year's Senate Enrolled Act 1, which was a modest short-term tax cut for households that own homes, maybe about $300,000 a year. But over the long term, it is most certainly a tax increase. But more to the point, it was a giant tax cut for businesses. And this Indy Star article points out that Applebee's gets more from Indiana's tax cuts than you do. And I thought that was an appropriate article to pair with this, being that, you know, most of their employees are going to be tipped workers. Lori, you know, what do you think? No tax on tips. Is this going to be a boon for low income, you know, Hoosiers who are working service industry jobs, or is this a bunch of hooey?
I think it's a bunch of hooey. And mostly because I think, like you said, how much difference is it really going to make? I mean, it's better than nothing. But I think what really stuck with me most about it is it's only going to last for a year. So I think it's, once again, some kind of a red herring. Look, we're going to give you a little toy, little prize over here. We're going to make things better for you. But what I think most people aren't going to realize is it's going to expire. It's just like the tax breaks, you know, when they passed the tax cuts back in, was it 2017? And supposedly we all got tax cuts. Ours expired, but the billionaires didn't. So to me, it's just something in that category where it's a way to try to fool Hoosiers into thinking something good is going to happen for them, but they're going to take it away. I mean, hey, if they really wanted to help these servers, why don't they mandate and create a law that says they have to be paid at least minimum wage, which is still incredibly pathetic in this state, instead of, what is it, $2.35, $2.01
$2.13, I believe, is your minimum wage for tipped employees. It is pathetic. The $7.25 minimum wage for other employees is pathetic.
You want to impress me, raise that damn rate and leave it that way, and then also give them a tax break on their tips. Permanently.
And Cliff, they point to this this budget surplus as being able to absorb this tax cut, you know, but yet there are other things we could be spending our money on in this state, instead of, again, a tax cut that it'll cost the state $250 million, but most Hoosiers aren't going to feel it. Yet we could use, I don't know, daycare in this state.
Yeah, we are losing 1,800 daycare. We're losing 1,800 families having daycare here in Indianapolis because of losing the child care benefits. We are seeing these very same people be cut from Medicare or any state-sponsored insurance where they don't get the benefits that we did. Over half the people who were on state-sponsored or healthcare are off at this point. We are having a surplus because we are cutting the most vulnerable. I think I looked at this bill, and it's only going to save people about $300 a year with this. I am firmly in the belief that people making under the medium wage in Indiana should not be paying taxes. We should be taking these data centers who are run by trillion-dollar corporations and taxing them at 30% of a flat 30% of what they are bringing into that they are making from our data centers, their assets, their otherwise, instead of giving them 30 years of no taxes. We should not be giving tax breaks to Applebee's. We should not be giving it to Amazon. We should not be giving it to Google. We should not be giving it to Meta. Sorry about my friends here on Meta and Google right now watching this. Please don't shut us off. Uh, there are many ways that we could save taxes and still support the people at the bottom end. The great thing about these huge corporations are you can tax them whatever you want, and they're still going to learn how to thrive. They have the wherewithal to. They have the monopoly to make sure that they survive. Maybe you have one less yacht in the C-suite. They're going to survive, and they're going to survive in a great way.
Bigly.
There is absolutely no reason.
Yeah, so you mentioned the data centers, Cliff, and I wanted to mention this week that the lawmakers axed a proposal to eliminate data center tax exemptions. So a lot of times these data centers come into the community, and the local government's like, hey, yeah, we want this, we want you to come build, we want the minuscule number of jobs that'll come with it. I mean, there's jobs up front, but and they're giving out these like 30 to 50-year tax abatements where these places don't have to pay taxes, or they pay minimal taxes. Well, lawmakers took language out of a bill that would have eliminated state sales tax exemptions for these data centers as the battle over our data center boom rages on. This from the Indy Star. Bill author Representative Kendall Culp of Rensselaer voted with his Republican colleagues to pass an amendment that deleted an entire page and several dozen additional lines from the 15-page bill. But the amendment would require data center companies to provide at least 1% of their sales tax savings to local governments, something Culp called a, quote, pretty good compromise. Lori, 1%, is that a pretty good compromise?
No, it's a joke, and I'm going to tell you right now what this is all about is somebody's getting their pockets lined. It's all bullshit. That's all this is. They ripped that out of there because they paid them, the data set, the owners, Vanguard, whoever the hell's behind all this crap, they paid them to do it. They're getting paid off. That is what is going on. It's all about the legislators making their money off of it, off our backs. Yeah. So, I mean, that's all I have to say about that, because there are ways to do this. We all know what those ways are. And to protect the people in those communities, we can do that. They refuse to do it because they're paid off not to do it, period.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not anti-AI. I think there are, use cases for it, but we can build these things sustainably. We can build them where they're a closed loop system and they don't use up a bunch of water. We can build them where they're, covered in solar panels or windmills or whatever.
Build up, not build out.
Right. But it's just, the taking the easy way, the corporate giveaways left and right. And they're like Lori said, the politicians' real owners are making off like bandits here.
Oh God, yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's disgusting. Yeah.
So Cliff, I wanted to start this next one here with you. It's, we talked about the wages and affordability sort of laws that are being considered at the State House this week. Well, there's still a bunch of culture war garbage in there too. And Senate Bill 236 is moving on, and I will talk about this with Katie more tonight. But this bill is another a dangerous abortion ban. Again, our abortions are already essentially banned in the state, but this is attempting to crack down on mailing or receiving medications that can cause abortion. So this is from Planned Parenthood Action. SB 236 puts a bounty on providers, pharmacists, manufacturers, or even private citizens who possess or distribute abortion medications. This invites neighbors, unsupportive family members, and even abusive partners to bring suit if they believe somebody is seeking an abortion, with the promise of a bounty of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The bill also empowers the Attorney General and the Inspector General to investigate Hoosiers' pregnancy outcomes and potentially have access to private medical information. I should probably be asking Lori how she feels about this as a woman. But Cliff, you are running to be a member of this august body, the Indiana State Senate. What do you think about this bill?
I'm probably one of the few people that are running that's willing to have their Planned Parenthood card. I am a card carrying member of Planned Parenthood. What people do with their own bodies are their own business. I don't have to agree with what anybody does with their body. Just a moment. I am somebody who carries and distributes Narcan. If I can find,
Wow.
I don't have to agree with what somebody's putting in their body. It is their body. It is their right. It is their decision, and our duty as a state, as a nation, as humans is to support them. I have also, it is crazy, but I have been affected by laws like this. As you can see right here, this is what they call methotrexate. It is chemo in a pill. I have been using this for over a decade to stave off bad crap in my liver. I have to keep it so I don't have to have surgery ever again. I've had pharmacists demand, why do you need this drug? It's none of your fucking business. The fact of the matter is, this same drug in the appropriate amounts will stop it will stop fetal development in the very same way that it stops cancer. And it is what is the term? Abortifacient?
Abortifacient, yes.
Abortifacient, yes. I am not good with words today. And as
That's
such,
a tricky one. On a good day, that's a tricky one.
I've had pharmacists refuse to fill this. I've had to change pharmacies twice because I've had pharmacists say, I'm not filling this until you answer my questions. And again, every single time it's none of your fucking business. It would be very easy to say, look, I want to stay alive, but it's none of their fucking business. It's none of my fucking business why anybody needs an abortion either. I could come up with some humanity. I could come up with something polite and sweet. I've heard Pete Buttigieg talk about abortions, and he says it very eloquent. Yeah, he says it very elegantly. I'm just going to say it's none of your fucking business. That is my end of statement on this. I will support anybody's right to deal with their body because it's their body and it's not mine.
Well, and you know, Cliff, I'm going to.
I just
Lori,
wanted to interject.
you go ahead.
Just a little end cap note on that. We must always bear in mind that all of this is about controlling women. That's all it's about. When you're letting them die, or you're letting them become sterile for the rest of their reproductive years, which means you're stopping because they've had to have a hysterectomy because something's gone on too long where they needed abortion care, you're not talking about preserving life. You are talking about controlling women.
Well, let's talk about preserving life, Lori, because that's their argument, right? For these anti-abortion laws, they don't admit that it's about controlling women. They say it's about protecting life, and that life begins at conception, and that an embryo is a valid human being with a soul, right? Their pro-life argument kind of loses its luster when they're also at the same time in our legislature coming up with new and novel, unique ways to kill people.
Yes.
So, again, from the Capitol Chronicle, After an attempt to add firing squads to Indiana law stalled in the Senate, a House panel on Wednesday passed a bill expanding the state's execution methods. Firing squad and nitrogen hypoxia would be allowed alongside lethal injection to carry out Indiana's death penalty under a bill that passed 8-5 out of the House Courts and Criminal Code Committee. House Bill 1119 was amended and now moves on to the full chamber. Lori, real pro-life of them, huh?
Well, let me tell you something. I think only sadistic barbarians would want to gas someone to death. And anytime any state would have to quote or cite another state, let's take Alabama, because they just executed a prisoner there with the gas. It was a long, agonizing, hideous death. It was what I'd say equivalent to a lynching. The guy had begged for an execution squad. They denied him that all the way up to the US Supreme Court, and they killed him. They gassed him, and he was in agony. It went on and on. I heard it was hideous. And that's what or I shouldn't say that's what these people have now cited as a great alternative to lethal injections. And they've cited that they do it in Alabama. I don't even know where to begin with that. It's you know what, if your lethal injection medicine has expired and you're determined to kill this person, to execute this person, and I guess you just need to wait until you can afford to buy more, because they're in prison. There's no rational, human, decent explanation for putting someone to death in that matter, no matter what they did. It's literally absolutely barbaric. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
And then to compare it with the fact that they want to like hunt down women that needed a life-saving abortion because they're worried about saving the life, their fetal personhood, whatever they call it. It's beyond my comprehension how no one can draw, how they cannot see how insane this is. There's no rational explanation to link the two of those together at all.
Yes, they can not see, Cliff. We're living in a timeline with masked secret police on the streets, and we're gassing people. I mean, the parallels keep going on and on. Now, there's another way, I guess, our state is looking at punishing people more and more. There's also a proposed constitutional amendment being debated in the State House this session. Now, again, from the indispensable Indiana Capitol Chronicle, a proposal to amend Indiana's constitution to allow judges to deny bail for certain quote-unquote dangerous defendants moved one step closer to the ballot Thursday after getting bipartisan support from the Senate. Lawmakers approved Senate Joint Resolution 1 in a 43-2 vote, sending the legislation to the House. If greenlit by that chamber too, the proposed constitutional change will appear on the November ballot for final consideration by Hoosier voters. Democratic Senators Lonnie Randolph of East Chicago and Greg Taylor of Indianapolis cast the only no votes. Now, supporters say the changes would give courts flexibility to prevent violent crime, but critics have warned it could open the door to bias and abuse in Indiana courts before a person is convicted. See, I understand that our state constitution actually mandates that bail be a thing, and this amendment to the state constitution will allow judges to hold people without bail. Do I understand that correctly, Cliff?
Yes, currently within the Constitution of Indiana, there are only two things that can stop bail. That's murder. I believe it's even first-degree murder, as well as treason. Those are the only two mandated cases where you are not automatically given bail. You may still have to pay for it, but you are automatically given it. Republicans love to go after our prosecutor Mears here, even though he has a higher conviction rate of any prosecutor within the state, they don't like to talk about that because they want to talk about criminals being left out on the street. There is a visceral reason why people want this. And there are times where I've seen open door where people are released multiple times. Living in the capital city, where we are the most populated portion of the state, we have what, a quarter of the people living in one county alone. And as such, we see our problems with this. However, these are very few and minor. It is, how do we put this? It is a problem where prosecutors are going to say, oh, if you look like me, you are going to get out because you are a good old boy. We can trust you. And the black guy jaywalking across the street, you're not going to get bail, because that's how it works in smaller towns. I grew up just south of Little Rock. I grew up in rural lands where they did not treat minorities very well. And I'd seen friends and their family members imprisoned and released after a trial said, no, you did not commit a crime. It wasn't even close to a crime. It is people who simply had the crime of being black. It is weird because growing up in Arkansas, we had very few black people in my neighborhood. I was friends with all of them because my family didn't put up with that shit. We did not put up with the same bullshit that Arkansas loved, because we came from what I thought was a civilized state here in Indiana, moved there and came back because we realized, no, it's not a civilized state. Even though Bill Clinton was governor during the time that I was there, it was a place where blacks would generally be in jail for minor crimes, where you'd hear politicians' sons do horrible things and back on the streets tomorrow.
Yeah, that's boy. I mean, it seems like we're taking our cues from places like Arkansas and Alabama, and I've heard Indiana referred to as the long middle finger of the South, and it certainly seems apt when we're doing things like this.
I think we lost him.
I think we did.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to go ahead, and it looks like our time's still. Oh, there he is.
Sorry,
He's back.
Sorry, yeah, I lost you guys there for a second.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, I wanted to talk about a couple other bills here. So, these culture warriors in the State House, they also like to go after our schools. And they added a school bathroom rule to an existing already horrible birth certificate gender bill that they're working on. So a Senate committee advanced on Wednesday a bill that would prohibit transgender Hoosiers from changing the sex on their birth certificates. We've talked about this already. This is a disgusting anti-trans bit of legislation. Well, they also slipped in a bathroom ban into this as well, because I don't know, because they're assholes. And additionally, in the school category, we also found out this week the NAACP is calling for changes to a bill that would shift power away from the IPS school board. Another story that we've been on a lot lately. So this is from WFYI. The Greater Indianapolis NAACP is urging state lawmakers to add safeguards to legislation that would transfer significant financial and operational control of Indianapolis public schools to a new mayoral appointed body. The organization said House Bill 1423 shifts too much authority away from the 9-member elected IPS board without adequate protections for voters and taxpayers. This bill is moving out of the House Education Committee, and we will talk about that more with Katie Rector tonight. I will ask Lori your thoughts on either one of those. You get first pick, and I'll give Cliff the other.
Well, in regards to shifting power away from the board and the IPS, I mean, that's just their whole goal has been all this time that to basically cripple public schools, destroy public schools. I mean, they've even tried to do it specifically, I think, in Indianapolis. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering this legislation, but it would have really affected Indianapolis. This happened last year, I believe, at one point. So to me, it's just my thought on anything that I see come out of the General Assembly in regards to that is they're always trying to cripple and starve IPS because they want to funnel all that money to private schools, charter schools, which is, we know that's not good. So the quality isn't there. There's no transparency, but that's what they want. And then there's money that they're lining their pockets with to do that. So I don't know if anybody has really delved into the whole charter school, private school fiasco that went on in Ohio, but it was especially horrible there. The amount of money that was changing hands, and the people that made that possible, it's really, once again, it's a grift, it's a scam. So.
Yeah, well, it's they're picking the pockets of the public. They are using our tax dollars to enrich their charter school donors and their religiously aligned Christian nationalist private schools, and they're jingling the culture war keys right while they're picking our pockets, Cliff, and that's what this anti-trans legislation is up to, is it not?
Yes, I have a lot of friends who are trans. I was looking at my campaign staff the other day, and I realized me and my partner are the only ones on our staff that are not even a little queer, because I've grown up in the arts. I grew up in entertainment. Those were my people. Hanging out in theaters growing up. They are people. They are people that I love, that I was in areas of the world where, let's just say, trans folks love the theater because it's one of the few places that they can go where they can be truly themselves. They can be the people that they should be without anybody judging them. I am lucky to work where we have restrooms that are all gender. I would love to see. I'm one of those people. I'm like, I don't like going into a restroom where there are 20 stalls. I want private restrooms. Everybody has a private restroom and a door to the restroom where they can close it. However, at the very same time, I do not feel upset about sharing my restroom with somebody who is trans. I do not feel unsafe. I don't feel unsafe watching my partner use a restroom with a trans person. You know what? Do you know who the people I'm scared of using restrooms with? MAGA. MAGA people, they're the ones that you're sitting at the urinal and they'll reach over and say something to you. I'm like, this is not a conversation. This is not stall talk. This is not conversation. And if one of them walked into a woman's room, I would be a little freaked out. I am never afraid of any of my trans friends walking into a women's room. I am not afraid to share a room with a trans person. And I am happy to know that when I walk into my restroom at my workplace, I have tampons sitting there right next to me. I've had friends ask me, they're like, can you go run to the store and get me some because I'm on assignment? And I say, you know what? I'll just run to my restroom, grab a few, and bring them to you.
Yeah, you nailed it, Cliff. MAGA pisses all over everything, don't they?
So to speak.
a couple last things here on the school front. So, we talked about the school choice, right, and funneling public money to private interests. Governor Mike Braun did opt into a new federal school choice program, announcing on Thursday that the state will opt into this new initiative, allowing Hoosiers to collect federal tax savings for investments made into K-12 scholarships. This credit was established under Trump's Big Stupid Bill Act and applies to charitable contributions made to scholarship granting organizations that serve eligible K through 12 students. Again, not a drop in the bucket compared to our universal voucher program, which is a complete scam. But so Braun opts into that, but Hoosier lawmakers opted out of the federal Sunbucks program once again. There was an amendment added to Senate Bill 1, which would have allowed Indiana to participate in the Sunbucks program, a federal initiative providing summer SNAP benefits to eligible children. These funds are a lifeline for food security when school is out of session. Again, they talk about fiscal responsibility. This is not new debt. This is federal money already funded by your tax dollars. But because Indiana declined to participate, that $76 million will now be redistributed to help children in other states.
Yes.
Hoosier taxes are feeding kids, just not Hoosier kids. That from our friends over at Mad Voters. Lori, thoughts on that?
I got to just say with these people, I think cruelty is the point. I'm just always going to keep saying that when the whole pro-life people and family values and all that nonsense, when they have an opportunity to help Hoosiers, they don't want to do it. And I think they really, I don't know what else to chalk it up to, but they really enjoy denying people that are struggling. They really like that. And then on top of it, just the thing that Braun has entered into, once again, I'm going to go back to this. It's a grift. That's always what it is. That money, that grant money, and donations to that will be, of course, funneled to their agenda for Christian nationalism. I'm going to call it the American Taliban because I was raised a Lutheran, and I just think that's blasphemy to call that any kind of Christianity. So I consider it the American Taliban agenda. And then they're making money off of it. It's always about controlling our society and creating a handmaid's tale here in the US and making money. That's what that goes back to. And Braun's a part of that. He's a Trump mini-me. He is, and he's horrifying and taking that money away. And I don't begrudge children in other states to eat, but by God, Indiana children need to eat. But I think we enjoy knowing that marginalized communities and people who are struggling, I think they enjoy knowing that those kids can't get any help. I don't know what else to chalk it up to, because it's just, it's taking money out of our budget. They just like doing it.
And they, again, they use this culture war stuff. They talk about fiscal responsibility. They use these things to especially lure rural voters, which is the base of the Republican Party here in Indiana, and yet our rural populations are not being well served. Our final story this week: rural homelessness is growing faster than in cities. Now, rural areas, again, from the indispensable Indiana Capital Chronicle, rural areas saw a 16.6 increase in people experiencing homelessness between 2023 and 2025, according to the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority data. During that same period, urban areas saw a 9.4% increase. Neither one of those are good. That's homeless going up across the board. Yeah. But, according to this article, Brandy Pirtle, housing director for the Jeffersonville-based New Hope Services, says that homelessness in rural areas is more complex and often harder to see than in urban areas. It's not people like camping on the streets or living outside. It's more couch surfers and folks that are doubled up and living in, inadequate housing. Cliff, what the hell? I hate to perpetuate the voting against your own interests trope, but rural Hoosiers are not being served by the people that they put into office.
No, if somebody is homeless if they're homeless in Putnam County, we know that they're going to be split up if they're a family. The women and children may be taken to a local shelter. However, the men are going to be sent 40 miles away. It's going to be tragic for families. Again, I grew up a good portion of my time in Little Rock, Arkansas. We moved there after my father lost his factory job at Alcoa here in Indiana. We had big blocks of government cheese. To this day, I wish the taste of government cheese is still one of the most amazing things because it was a lifeline. We had vegetables. Farmers would take what they had on their crops. We have crops that are not even being picked this year because we have gotten rid of our immigrant population or people who even look like they are immigrant population. We are letting crops die on the vine, whereas when I was a part of these projects, when I was taking food for starving families, we had the best fresh foods given to us. We had government cheese, and if you've never had it, you should. It tastes great on Ritz crackers, and nothing has ever tasted good. But we need to serve these people. I'm living here where there's encampment about a half mile away from me underneath the 65-70 split here in Indianapolis. And we have the resources to help those folks. We choose not to. People in rural areas, they don't even care to try. There's a reason why we have homeless folks here in Indianapolis. Something like 40% of our homeless are folks from rural Indiana who come here because we are the people in our liberal blue city who are willing to do the Christian thing to help them. The people in the communities where they come with their flag and their Bible don't give a fuck about them.
Cliff, well said. Mic drop moment there to close us out here today. Listen, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Lori, if you are online and folks want to connect, where can they find you? And it's also okay to say don't talk to me.
Well, I have no social media at all. I gave all of that up, but I do have a Substack publication called What About Indiana? I've been so busy. I have not written much lately for it, but you can find that out there if you would like to subscribe to that or reach me that way. I also have a website because I am an actor and a singer. So I have LoriEckerActress.com. If you can also reach me that way. So those are the ways to get a hold of me. And I also work with Indivisible Central Indiana. And that's if somebody wants to send a message there, they probably will get it to me. But I'm glad to be on social media. So thank you.
Yeah. Cliff, and you are running for State Senate District 46. Where can folks learn more about you and your campaign?
You can find me on my website, cliffmars.com. That's Cliff with one F, Mars, as in the state. Or no, not the state, the planet. It is not a state yet. Elon Musk has not turned it into a state yet.
He's trying.
Let's hope he makes a trip to Mars and doesn't make it. But cliffmars.com, you can find out more about my run for Senate 46. This is a fully contained Senate district within Indianapolis, covering the downtown, the state capitol, and I expect that I bring my people in, and we are going to turn Indiana blue.
Love it. Love it.
Yay,
Thank you,
cool.
Cliff. So yes, find our fine guest today wherever they are, wherever you are, and find me online at Who's Left on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. It's at whosleft.us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. And please give us a subscription over at progressiveindiana.net. Paid if you can, free if you can't. Just subscribe. We want you there with us. So on behalf of my guests, Lori Ecker and Cliff Marsiglio, today, I am Scott Aaron Rogers. I'll see you next week. Love each other, Indiana.
See ya.